Why is it that some people walk home at night without a second thought, while others carry keys between their fingers, constantly looking over their shoulders? This question isn't rhetorical, it reflects a stark inequality. In today's world, feeling safe has become a luxury for many, when in reality it should be a given. Safety is not a favor bestowed upon the fortunate few. It's a right that belongs to every human being. Yet, the way our systems and societies are structured, safety often feels like a members-only privilege. As the saying goes, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Take the example of Sarah Everard in the UK, who was abducted and killed while walking home at night. Her story sparked global outrage because it hit too close to home for women everywhere. The fact that she did everything right, wore bright clothes, took a well-lit route, texted a friend, and still ended up as a victim, exposes the fragility of safety for many people. 1. What does being safe truly mean? Safety, at its core, is not just the absence of bruises or broken bones. It is not a locked door or a lit hallway. True safety runs deeper. It encompasses emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It's the freedom to exist without fear, to speak without trembling, to walk into a room without shrinking. It's the quiet confidence that you won't be judged, ridiculed, harassed, or harmed simply for being yourself. The phrase, "peace of mind is worth its weight in gold," captures this perfectly. Because when safety is stripped away, even the most basic experiences, like speaking up in a meeting, walking alone at night, or disagreeing in a relationship, become battles. Constant vigilance, second-guessing, and self-censorship become everyday armor. And no one thrives when they're stuck in survival mode. Yet society often defines safety too narrowly, focusing only on physical danger, while ignoring 1,000 invisible ways people feel unsafe each day. A woman who keeps her keys between her fingers while walking home at night isn't being paranoid. She's navigating a world that has taught her to fear the shadows. A girl who lowers her voice in class so as not to be labeled too opinionated isn't just being polite. She's adapting to a culture that equates confidence with arrogance when it comes from a woman. We tell people to stay safe, but what we often mean is stay small. Don't stand out. Don't make noise. Don't challenge anyone. As the idiom goes, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. But what kind of safety is that? If staying safe means shrinking, silencing, and suppressing yourself, then perhaps what we're offering isn't safety at all, but quiet compliance. Real safety should never require self-erasure. A safe society is one where people don't have to edit themselves to survive. It's where disagreement doesn't turn into dismissal, where vulnerability isn't weaponized, where asking for help isn't seen as a weakness. It's the kind of safety that lets you exhale instead of holding your breath every time you walk into a room or raise your hand. When people don't feel emotionally or socially safe, they begin to disappear in plain sight. They stop participating, stop dreaming, stop taking risks. Their silence isn't consent, it's protection. As the old saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. If someone has been mocked, ignored, or punished for showing up authentically, they learn to play it safe, but it comes at the cost of their voice, their creativity, and ultimately, their joy. Safety also means having space to be wrong without being shamed. To learn, unlearn, grow, and not be defined by your worst moment. It means being granted grace, not just tolerance. Because true safety doesn't only protect, it empowers. It creates the conditions where people can be bold, curious, and alive. So when we talk about safety, let's not reduce it to locked doors and alarm systems. Let's ask harder questions. Do people feel safe to speak their truth? To say no without guilt? To say yes without fear? Do they feel seen, heard, and respected, even when they challenge the norm? Because safety isn't just a physical state, it's a culture. And like the saying goes, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. If any group is unsafe, then all of us are diminished. Creating true safety means building a world where no one has to choose between being themselves and being secure. And that kind of safety, that's not just protection, That's liberation. 2. When safety becomes a privilege. Safety should be something all people can rely on, a basic right, not a privilege. Yet for many, safety remains a luxury granted only to those who meet certain social standards. In practice, it's often reserved for those who fit the mold: white, cisgender, heterosexual men whose presence is rarely questioned, whose existence is assumed neutral and non-threatening. They move through life largely unencumbered by the kinds of second-guessing, self-monitoring, or survival tactics that others must constantly employ. For the rest of society, however, existing safely is not passive. It requires strategy. And when safety depends on effort, vigilance, and adaptation, it's no longer a right. It's a reward for good behavior as defined by those in power. This unequal access to safety is rarely explicit, but its effects are deeply felt. It's in the subtle, persistent need to read the room before speaking, to measure the risks before stepping outside, to soften your tone so as not to seem aggressive, to walk faster at night, to keep keys in your hand as a weapon, not out of irrational fear, but because experience teaches caution. It's like walking a tightrope. One misstep could tip you into danger. The balancing act is exhausting, and it limits not just movement but identity, voice, and opportunity. Such constant awareness chips away at a person's sense of belonging. When safety is conditional, dependent on how you look, act, or sound, you learn to shrink yourself, to blend in, to be quiet rather than bold. And that takes a toll. People begin to internalize the idea that it's their responsibility to avoid harm, rather than society's duty to ensure protection. As the saying goes, you can't win a rigged game, and for those whose safety isn't guaranteed, the game is rigged from the start. There's also cruel irony here. Those who are most at risk are often blamed for their own vulnerability. Instead of questioning why certain people are targeted, we teach them how to avoid being targets. Girls are taught not to dress a certain way, not to stay out too late, not to walk alone. Marginalized communities are told to stay calm, be polite, don't provoke. The message is clear. The world won't change for you, so change yourself to survive in it. This turns the idea of safety on its head, from a shared responsibility into an individual burden. And as the idiom says, when the roof leaks, don't blame the rain. The fault lies in the system, not in those who are harmed by it. In a fair society, no one would need to earn safety. You wouldn't have to dress it, silence yourself for it, or justify your existence to deserve it. Safety would be a given, a foundation from which people could live fully and authentically. But as long as it remains a privilege enjoyed by some and pursued by others, the imbalance will persist. And those left walking the tightrope will continue to do so with heavy hearts and tired feet, always on guard. Real change means addressing this imbalance at its root. It requires shifting the question from what can individuals do to protect themselves to why are they unsafe in the first place. As long as safety is treated like a commodity instead of a right, we will never achieve real equality. The system must evolve, and with it, our definitions of who deserves to live without fear. Because until safety is available to everyone, no one can truly claim it for themselves. 3. The psychological toll of living in fear. Living in a constant state of fear takes a heavy toll on the human psyche. It's not just about being afraid. It's about the cumulative effect of that fear on every aspect of one's life. When we are continually on alert, anticipating danger around every corner, it becomes almost impossible to enjoy a sense of peace. Over time, this hypervigilance can lead to chronic anxiety, depression, and even post-traumatic stress disorder. Fear is exhausting, and the mental burden it places on an individual is profound. As the saying goes, living in fear is not living at all. When safety is compromised, a person's very sense of freedom is also stripped away. Fear leads to self-imposed limitations. People begin to question every decision they make, from where they go to how they interact with the world. It influences their choices, often in subtle but significant ways. For example, someone might pass on a job opportunity because it requires travel at night or in areas perceived as unsafe. This is not just about avoiding danger, but also about the psychological cost of living with the constant threat of harm. This feeling of being constantly on guard leads to a shrinking of one's world. People limit their interactions, withdraw from social engagements, or change their behavior in order to stay within perceived safe boundaries. These self-imposed restrictions go beyond mere inconvenience. They begin to erode a person's sense of self-worth and autonomy. They may even alter their personalities to fit into a mold that they believe will keep them safe, suppressing their true desires, expressions, or ambitions. The effects of living under such stress are far-reaching. The toll on mental health is only the beginning. The economic cost of this constant vigilance can be just as damaging. When people are afraid to take on new opportunities, advance in their careers, or pursue their goals because of safety concerns, they are deprived of their potential. This leads to missed chances, stagnation, and even resentment. They might find themselves stuck in a cycle of self-doubt and diminished hope, which compounds the psychological burden they already bear. Socially, the strain of living in fear also manifests in isolation. The fear of being targeted or harmed can create barriers between individuals and their communities. Relationships suffer when individuals feel unable to truly engage, be open, or take risks. Friendships may fade, partnerships may weaken, and social networks may deteriorate as people withdraw into themselves to protect what little sense of control they have left. This self-limiting behavior doesn't just affect an individual's mental health. It damages their quality of life on every level. Fear becomes a silent, insidious force that slowly erodes a person's ability to function freely and fully. And when that fear is constant, whether from societal pressures, violence, discrimination, or other factors, it prevents people from realizing their potential, both personally and professionally. To truly live, we must be free from the constraints imposed by fear. Living in fear is not living at all, is more than just a saying. It's a reminder that the cost of constantly shrinking to fit into a world defined by threat is far too great. True freedom lies in the ability to exist without constantly measuring one's actions or limiting one's opportunities out of fear. It is a reminder that safety is not just about physical protection. It is about the space to be, to grow, and to thrive without the shadow of constant anxiety hanging over every decision. 4. Reframing safety as a universal right, a call for change. Safety should never be seen as a privilege or a reward. It's not something you have to earn by dressing a certain way, avoiding certain places, or behaving in ways that won't provoke others. Safety is a basic human right, like clean air or water. And yet, for millions of people around the world, it remains something they must constantly fight for, negotiate, or even sacrifice parts of themselves to experience. That's not justice, that's survival. Too often, when someone is harmed or violated, society asks the wrong questions. Why were you out so late? What were you wearing? Did you do something to lead them on? These questions shift the blame onto the person who is harmed and away from the systems and attitudes that allow harm to happen in the first place. We should be asking, why isn't our world safe enough for everyone to move freely, speak openly, and simply exist without fear? There's a saying, don't just treat the symptoms, fix the root cause. It applies perfectly here. Teaching women to carry pepper spray, or telling people from marginalized communities to stay alert, is like putting a band-aid on a deep wound. Yes, it might help in the short term, but it doesn't address why the wound is there in the first place. Real change means going deeper. It means challenging the ideas, behaviors, and systems that make some people feel entitled to harm others, and not make the rest of us feel responsible for avoiding that harm. True safety means more than just avoiding violence. It means feeling emotionally secure. It means being able to express yourself without fear of judgment, exclusion, or ridicule. It means knowing you can go to school, work, or even walk down the street without being harassed. It means having the confidence that if something does go wrong, there are systems in place to support you, not blame you. But how do we get there? It starts with education. We need to teach empathy, respect, and critical thinking, not just to children, but to everyone. We need leaders who prioritize human dignity over profits or appearances. We need media that doesn't glamorize control or dominance, but uplifts voices that have long been silenced. And we need policies that protect the most vulnerable, not just the most powerful. It also means shifting our cultural narratives. For too long, we've romanticized resilience, telling people how strong they are for surviving unsafe environments. But strength shouldn't be a requirement for basic respect and protection. Instead of celebrating how well someone copes with injustice, we should be working to eliminate the injustice altogether. The truth is, no one should have to earn the right to feel safe. And if safety only applies to a select group, then it's not safety at all. It's privilege disguised as normalcy. As the idiom goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. When we create a society that values and guarantees safety for everyone, regardless of gender, race, background, or identity, we all benefit. Communities become stronger. People become more confident, more creative, more free. So let's stop accepting fear as a normal part of life. Let's stop asking people to shrink themselves just to stay alive. And let's start building a world where safety isn't a luxury. It's a given, not just for some, but for all. 5. Call to action, a shared responsibility. The simple truth is this: no one is truly safe until everyone is. Safety is not a private luxury, something that a few can hold on to while others go without. It's a collective condition. When we allow harm to happen to others, even in silence, even from the sidelines, we contribute to a culture that accepts fear as normal. And that culture hurts everyone eventually. As the old saying goes, evil thrives when good people do nothing. Our silence, our passivity becomes part of the problem. Creating a culture of safety doesn't start with sweeping reforms. It starts with everyday choices. It starts when we speak up against harmful jokes and sexist comments, even when it's uncomfortable. It begins when we really listen to those who share their stories of pain and injustice without minimizing their experience or shifting blame. It grows stronger when we challenge systems that protect power instead of people, and when we refuse to look the other way. This is not someone else's fight. It's not just the job of women to demand respect. Not just the job of marginalized communities to ask for protection. If you believe in fairness and dignity and decency, then you have a role to play. Whether it's how you raise your children, vote in your elections, or support the people around you, every action or inaction adds up. As the idiom goes, many hands make light work. If we all share the responsibility, change becomes possible. This means educating ourselves and others about consent, boundaries, and respect. It means advocating for policies that prioritize human rights and rejecting leaders who dismiss or excuse discrimination. It means donating our time, our voice, or our resources to movements that are working to protect those most at risk. And most of all, it means refusing to accept fear as the price of existence. Because when we normalize fear, when we shrug and say, that's just how it is, we're betraying the very core of our shared humanity. We're telling people that their pain doesn't matter enough to fix. We're saying that survival is up to the individual rather than the community. But safety isn't a favor someone grants you. It isn't a gift you must prove you're worthy of. It's a basic, non-negotiable right, one that belongs to everyone, regardless of gender, race, class, identity, or background. And if even one of us is forced to live in fear, then none of us can truly live in freedom. So let's draw the line. Let's choose not to look away. Let's make safety something we build together. In our homes, our workplaces, our schools, our streets. Let's be the generation that finally understands that protecting others is not a burden, it's a duty. Because when we protect each other, we all rise. And when we stand together, no one stands alone. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.